Wizara ya Elimu tayari iko na maagizo na maelezo ya vile mambo ya shule itaendelea kutoka hapa. Tumesema mashule yale yalikuwa yanatarajiwa kufunguliwa Jumatatu, sasa hayatafunguliwa mpaka pale mwongozo mpya utakapotolewa. Na wizara inaelewa vile itashirikiana na walimu na viongozi wa mashule kuendeleza sekta hiyo ya elimu kama janga hili litaendelea baada ya wiki ijayo. Serikali itatoa mwongozo zaidi baada ya wiki ijayo.
This is breaking news from Siboga TV. President Ruto's decision to postpone the reopening of schools until further notice due to the heavy rains is a prudent and necessary measures to ensure the safety and well-being of students, teachers, and staffs. The decision reflects a responsible and proactive approach to managing the challenges posed by the inclement weather condition. The decision to delay the reopening of schools is based on a careful assessment of the risks and potential hazard associated with the current weather condition. The heavy rains have caused widespread flooding, landslide, and other weather-related disasters in many parts of the country. These conditions pose a serious threat to the safety and security of students, teachers, and staff, as well as to the infrastructure of schools. By postponing the reopening of schools, President Ruto is prioritizing the safety and well-being of the education community. This decision demonstrates a commitment to ensure that schools are safe and conducive running environment for all students. It also reflects a recognition of the need to take proactive measures to mitigate the risks posed by extreme weather events. In addition to the immediate safety concern, the decision to postpone the reopening of schools also highlights the need for long-term planning and preparedness for weather-related disaster. Climate change is expected to increase the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events such as heavy rains and flooding. As such, it is essential for policymakers and educators and community to work together to develop strategies to adopt and mitigate the impact of climate change on education sector. To get it from the horse's mouth, this is what President William Ruto had to say about this situation of postponing school reopening.
The weight of tragic events in recent weeks has tested our nation's resilience in the wake of unprecedented challenges. Persistent torrential rain has unleashed devastating floods, which have claimed 210 lives as of today. It has also caused injuries to many more and wreaked havoc on property, infrastructure, and livelihoods. No corner of our country has been spared from this havoc. The reopening date of our schools after the April holidays, which was scheduled for Monday this week, has had to be varied. Transportation has become challenging in many parts of the country due to flooded and damaged roads and bridges, and the threat of ravaging rivers and overflowing dams in downstream regions is immense. Water volumes in the Seven Forks Hydroelectric Power Dam have hit historic highs, with Masinga and Kiambere dams already spilling over through the managed spillways and threatening to overflow into neighboring settlements and causing devastation downstream in Garissa and Tana River counties. Sadly, we have not seen the last of this perilous period, as the situation is expected to escalate. Meteorological reports paint a dire picture. The rains will persist, increasing both in duration and intensity for the rest of this month and possibly after. The Meteorological Department and the IGAD Climate Prediction Application Center have issued a stark warning. Kenya may face its first ever cyclone. This cyclone, named Hidaya, could hit any time and is predicted to cause torrential rain, strong winds, and powerful and dangerous waves, which could potentially disrupt marine activities in the Indian Ocean and settlement along the Kenyan coast. Our country must act decisively and swiftly to mitigate the devastating impacts of the present crisis and protect life and property. The loss of human life, displacement of people, and destruction of property has been most profound within fragile ecosystems on which the government has taken the following steps. First, the government has mapped out 178 dam and water reservoirs situated within public and private lands in 33 counties, which are already full and present imminent danger to adjacent settlements and people. Second, areas prone to landslides and mudslides in various counties have been identified as high-risk areas from which the adjacent settlements have to be evacuated. Third, relocation notices have been issued to all persons living in unplanned settlements within riparian reserves along rivers, streams, and other water courses. Acknowledging the gravity of this unfolding situation, the Cabinet has met 3 times over the last 10 days to provide leadership on a whole-of-government response to this crisis. To support disaster response and mitigation efforts across the country, the Treasury has been directed to provide adequate resources and work with other development partners to provide for the purchase and supply of food, medical, and other non-food items. County security committees are directed to determine on a case-by-case basis the radius that shall constitute the scope of the area subject to evacuation and mandatory relocation that has already been pronounced. The county security committees are further directed to continuously monitor other dams and water reservoirs across the country that may not be presenting a risk now, but could do so in the event of further precipitation. The Kenya Defence Forces and the National Police are directed to deploy resources, personnel, and equipment for carrying out coordinated public safety and risk mitigation operations in as many parts of the country as they have installations. Security agencies are further directed to enlist the support of the National Youth Service and work with the National Government Administration officers to respond to this emergency, including ensuring timely, orderly, and human evacuation of all persons at risk. Cabinet secretaries will spearhead disaster response and mitigation efforts across the country, and to this end, ministries, departments, and agencies are directed to work closely with the National Disaster Operations Center and security agencies to ensure the whole-of-government approach to the management of the prevailing crisis. The government, working with stakeholders, has put in place adequate measures to provide temporary shelter, as well as food and non-food essential supplies. The ministry responsible for special programs is directed to work with development partners and relevant humanitarian organizations to mobilize adequate food and non-food supplies to support all affected persons in every part of the country. The Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, through the National Cereals and Produce Board, is directed to make available food supplies in government stores to support this effort. The Ministry of Health is directed to work with development partners, including the World Health Organization, AMREF, Red Cross, UNHCR, World Food Programme, and other relevant humanitarian agencies to mobilize resources and logistical support to avail essential drugs, food, and other medical supplies to those affected. The Ministry of Interior is directed to coordinate the relocation and evacuation of the affected members of the public, identification of sites for temporary shelter for displaced persons, and supervise the overall support program. The Ministry of Education is directed to postpone the dates of reopening of all schools in the country for the second term until further notice. Members of Parliament are requested to reorganize the CDF allocations to prioritize reconstruction of school infrastructure that has been damaged as a result of the floods ravaging the country. As the national government plays its role in dealing with the current situation, I request and urge county governments, development partners, and private sector to join in these efforts and provide support as, where, and when they can. In Nairobi, settlements in riparian reserves have complicated the response efforts and compounded and aggravated the risk to human life, safety, and property destruction. The Ministry of Interior is hereby directed to enforce the relocation notices issued earlier upon their expiry at 6:30 p.m. today. We appreciate and thank members of the public who are already cooperating with government on the evacuation and relocation effort that is underway.
In conclusion, President Ruto's decision to postpone the reopening of schools until further notice due to heavy rains is a responsible and necessary measure to the safety and well-being of students, teachers, and staff. This decision reflects a proactive and forward-thinking approach to manage the challenges posed by this situation of heavy rains across the country.